All
All
right,
right.
so got us there on the old Periscope, the old Twitch, and now it is YouTube season. We are here. It is NFL Live before lock. We're going to get the time straightened out for all of y'all. Yes, I dropped a y'all. I live in Virginia. Apparently, that's a word here. All of y'all to get us aligned next weekend. But for now, we are all set. But we've got an exciting game here. Week 1 rematch, Kyle. This is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the New Orleans Saints. I believe the Saints won that first one on the strength of 2 Alvin Kamara touchdowns. Our real question today is how many different ways are we going to think of to call Kamara? Kamara, Camera.
Mark, Merrick, camera. I think that's got to be like the bulk of them. If there's a fourth way, I'd like to hear it in chat. Phonetically spell it in chat.
Camera. Kamara. Kamarar?
Pulling up chat right now. See if we get anything good.
EMac just woke up. No, I've been awake. I did have a nice 2.5 hour nap yesterday, though. That was glorious. No naps today, although I don't know what my hair is very there's a lot of static electricity here, so we kind of ran out of humidity, and we don't have the humidifiers on, and it kind of changed for us. We got to turn those on in the winter, so it's been nice. Been nice. All right, we are sponsored by No House Advantage. We're going to talk about them. We have some amazing Awesemo offers. You can get 1 week off all Awesemo premium content, the full package, by selecting the Awesemo 1 week platinum premium package using the promo code Augusta. We'll get that for you at 50%. That is half off. That is in honor of the Masters, which starts on Thursday. This promotion will end on November 13th, but you get everything. You get the MMA, you get NASCAR finished up today, so we're done with that. But you get football, you get League of Legends, you get Counter-Strike Global Offensive. What else do we have, Kyle? We've got the goods. I feel like I play a lot of these sports, but they're not. CSGO, I guess, is the one. I don't know any of them. I now know the names, so I have the guys I like just because their names make me laugh, like Brokey. It's one of the names I remember. So you don't want to just pick names and play because sometimes they don't start. Therefore, you use the Awesemo projections. All right, we are getting most everybody in here, and let's tee it up and go. An annoying day. Thankfully, we have the Showdown slate. If you had Justin Jackson, you got a big old 0. He got hurt on the first play of the game. I believe he got hit in the knee. So I don't know if it was a knee bruise. Someone was saying concussion. I don't think it was a concussion. I was only looking at Twitter. I wasn't watching the telecast. We had Noah Fant go down early on in that game. We've had who was our other disappointing plays? If you didn't play Christian McCaffrey, you're kind of sad. He was 8,500 on DK, and apparently, he's just going to remind everybody that he's awesome. If you didn't play Dalvin Cook, you're going to be a little bored as well. But yeah, we've got time to make it all back here. We have the Showdown slate, and then you've got the prime time tonight and tomorrow's game on a 2-game slate. This should be a fun one. Any notable things you wanted to hit on that happened today before we roll on into this?
Yeah, I saw one or two reports that Jackson came back in, but it seems like maybe he just like put his helmet on the sidelines because I don't think he has like a stat at this point. So yeah, or at least since that first carry or whatever. So no, I don't think he's come back in, or it doesn't seem like it. If he's eligible to be back in, if he hasn't been ruled out, he's not getting any run. Noah Fant did come back in, didn't do much. He got injured on the first play, which is like a 30-some yard or 25, some pretty long catch and run, and he rolled his ankle, and he's been dealing with that ankle injury since like week 4 maybe, and sidelined him for a game or two. Did come back in, didn't do very much though, and David Johnson concussion didn't come back in obviously. So I don't know. Duke Johnson, interesting name to know going forward. Oh, I guess behind Noah Fant, it looks like Albert O suffered maybe a bad injury, and I kind of liked Albert O, even if he was just getting one target a game.
Yeah, I'm looking at the afternoon box scores. What's up is down. What's down is up. You had Kalen Balazs got the workload there without just Jackson. Devontae Booker naturally, outproduced. Josh Jacobs on the ground because 2020. Pittsburgh doing their best to screw up, but Big Ben just threw his third touchdown of the game. That went to Eric Ebron. killed my last GPP hope. I was fading the Ebron play there. Now I know why my currently winnings is not nearly as robust as it once was. Here we go. Let's hit the slate. So at the top, there is a little bit of weather here in Tampa Bay. Currently, there is a light rain and some wind. This is not unusual for Tampa, so the stadium's actually reasonably designed for this. It looks like it's probably going to, pardon the pun, blow away. At least the rain is. The wind may stay there a little bit. It's going to impact, some of the longer throws. Kyle, do either of our quarterbacks throw the ball downfield?
Well, Tom Brady does. Tom Brady actually has been more aggressive since joining this team. Drew Brees does not. That is one of his greatest fears in life, is throwing deep down the field. But since joining the Bucs, Brady has actually kind of molded his game a little bit in that Bruce Arians style. I don't know if it's the exact like Jameis Winston style we saw last year. He does. Drew Brees would never do that on his life.
All right. So we have, where's my notes here? Let's have some fun. So Brady leads Brees by one passing touchdown on the career list, 561 to 560. Combined age, 85. Combined NFL seasons, 41. So we've got a couple of future Hall of Famers here, but wow, they're both in their they both 20 and 21 years, respectively, Brees and Brady there. We do have Antonio Brown making his debut. We've got Chris Godwin coming back. He had a fractured left index finger. I believe it was a hairline fracture, as best I can tell, but always risk of banging a helmet, doing something weird, the ball hits it, whatever. Anything that re-aggravates that could be a problem. Obviously, it will be taped up, probably have a splint on it. I don't know how much that will impact him, but he has been Brady's favorite target when he has been in the game. But of course, we have not had Antonio Brown in the mix. On the other side, we should have Michael Thomas making his return. He basically has missed the entire season. He played about half of the first game and has not been back since. We've had knee, ankle, hamstring issues, and potentially player conduct. A little bit of a fight in practice. Allegedly, that wasn't why he sat out one of those games. So he should be back. You've got Latavius Murray anchored into a role, which is going to be important tonight because we're looking for some salary savings. And then what's our other wild card here? Oh, yeah, I almost said Emmanuel Lewis. Webster. Emmanuel Sanders. You have no idea what that is. Emmanuel Sanders is back. He has missed the last two games on the COVID reserve list. So the theory is he should be playing, but we have a full stable of receivers on both sides. Take it from the top here. Let's go back to Drew Brees, who had a sore right shoulder, but he's got his full complement of players back. Oh, and before I forget, Jameis Winston revenge. It's 2020. You got to make one Winston lineup one Winston captain lineup.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, apparently, if it's going to, normally on a normal slate, of course not. But when the revenge comes into play, no, I'm probably still not doing that. So yeah, on the Saints side, I think the question we should be looking at most here is what does Alvin Kamara look like with Michael Thomas back? Because Alvin Kamara was on pace to set like all of the running back receiving numbers records, but those all come in the context of Michael Thomas. I believe he even missed some of game one. I don't think he completed that game and obviously hasn't played in a game since. So those numbers, how relevant are they? I think they're probably an overestimation of what we'll see from him simply because they had a number one receiver or they didn't have a number one receiver. So Alvin Kamara had to take on that role, and he did that role. He was on pace for over 1,200 receiving yards. So he was operating as a number one receiver and not Derrick Henry level of number one running back, but still number one running back. So I think those numbers come down. But they come down from a record-setting pace to still maybe the best receiving back in the NFL up there with Christian McCaffrey, really the only two we could consider. So is that why, or is that a reason to shy away from him at captain? I don't think so. Not for me personally. I do think the receiving numbers come down, but he can still lead the slate in scoring and even lead the slate in value outside of the $200 player that obviously needs a catch to have crazy value. He can lead all of the good, considerable players in value. So it's not really scaring me off of him, but it definitely is something to consider. And maybe it's the edge you find. Do you have any reason to believe that Alvin Kamara will get seriously docked by Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders returning? I don't think so, but I think that's maybe the question we should focus on to start off with. Yeah. I'm still on board with him.
Absolutely, and I am as well. For me, tonight is kind of a question of, do you go with Brady at captain or do you go with Kamara if you're only going to make a couple of lineups? And I'll drop some cash games in here in a minute once I make my my special main lineup. But I have been flipping back and forth between the two of them in captain spot. It doesn't. I don't want to split my lineups. Ultimately, right now I've landed on Brady, but all day I was on Kamara. But you can do. You kind of have to end up using both kickers. There's no real good punt play that's super cheap, especially with everybody healthy, because we don't know where everything's going to land. You'd start to look at maybe a Cameron Brate, and you want to hope for a touchdown. He's going to play 10 or 15% of the snaps. It's going to make it kind of hard. He gets about 1, maybe 2 targets a game. So it's going to be interesting to see how people play it out. Now, in tournaments, we're going to want to get a little bit wacky, as we normally do. So key things to know: Tampa Bay has the top passing DVOA, the third rushing DVOA, and the best overall DVOA. They're first in the league with 14 takeaways, including 11 interceptions. Those are both first. They're second in the league with 28 sacks. The only players to have gone more than 288 yards are Teddy Bridgewater and Justin Herbert. That's 367 for Bridgewater, 290 for Justin Herbert. And then I said, on the other hand, Brees has only posted 288 yards, above 288 yards twice. That's a cherry pick. So I had some fun with that. I call it out and I say, just a little fun cherry picking. He has actually passed for 280 3 other times. Just didn't get to 288. So that's 280 plus in 5 of his 7 starts. There's some props out there tonight that are kind of in the 278, 283 range that you can find on on Awesemo Odds. So you want to take a peek at that on OddsShopper. But that might be a spot to take the over, depending on how you feel about the weather. This comes back full circle. Are we that worried about his yardage? He's going to throw short to Michael Thomas. He's going to throw short to Alvin Kamara, and then they're going to do fun things after the catch. That I don't think is going to impact him for the weather. So that's kind of hitting on 8 things at once. But we've talked a little Breeze, talked a little Kamara. Do you want to go? Any other thoughts on Breeze, Murray, and then take us to the receivers?
Yeah, I think if there were I guess I'll start with Murray. I actually, every time Murray comes onto a slate, I think he is just so much more live for a touchdown than people really expect, because you have to scroll and scroll and scroll and find him at like 2K. But he shouldn't be viewed as a 2K player in the sense of, at least in large field tournaments, his range of outcomes is like a 1K player or a 6K player, because he's so touchdown dependent, but he is also so live for a touchdown. Like, he's not that far off from Alvin Kamara in the red zone work, especially as a rusher. I'm sure Alvin Kamara is doing better as a receiver, but they kind of split their red zone carries between these two, with only a slight lean towards Kamara. So anytime Latavius Murray is on a showdown slate, I end up getting a decent amount of Latavius Murray, because I think people just underestimate his touchdown potential. So I'm kind of always on Latavius Murray. I will be again tonight, no exception. In terms of Breeze, I guess if there was a quarterback I'd be more willing to fade, it would probably be Breeze. I mean, obviously his team is implied to score fewer points, but his receivers are more likely to get there on simply receptions alone, or they could get there because they have such high market share numbers. Either of his receivers, I'm calling, Alvin Kamara one of his receivers for this conversation. Either of his receivers can get to 100 yards, and Breeze doesn't necessarily need to have like a 300-yard game. So their bonuses aren't quite as correlated, because like Michael Thomas can go off and Breeze can still have a quiet game. He just sees that much of the offense when he's healthy. The same thing for Kamara. So if there's a quarterback I'm fading, which it's tough to, you cannot play all the good plays tonight. This is not a landscape where we have the salary to do so. So if there's a quarterback I'm fading, it's Breeze. I'll still have some of him, but I do think he is the one that is less likely to be like correlated with his receivers. Manuel Sanders is fine. I don't have a ton of interest in him, specifically because we see so much work, both as like in the running game. A lot of their plays end up going towards runs. I believe they're in the bottom half of the league in pass run split, skewing towards the run, at least in terms of, relative to the rest of the league. So a lot of their plays are runs. And when they pass, it goes to all of like 2 guys. So I'm not super excited about Sanders. It's more of a large field GPP play. And even at that, I think the field may be a little bit too on him for my liking. There are some, I think, more interesting spots like a Latavius Murray, or some spots on the Tampa Bay side of things. So I think that covers all the guys.
All right. Reminder, guys, if you have not hit the like button, please do that. It always helps us out, gets us past that pesky YouTube algorithm. We got about 900 people in here, 62 likes. That feels a little bit light. Come on, help us out, please. Also, thank you very much for getting us over 40,000 subscribers. We now have our eyes set on 50,000. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, if you're looking at your computer screen or your phone, it should be in the lower right little red button. If you've already subscribed, hey, that button's not going to So I can't see it because I've already subscribed to our channel, but that's how you can take a look at that. Free tools tonight are the NFL rankings. That was more for the full slate than anything else, but we do have 4 articles up talking about Showdown or prop betting for tonight. Kyle's done a strategy article. I've done a full breakdown of both teams and then ranked each of the entire player pool. And then Matt Gajeski and Eric Lindquist both have some betting articles. Those are all free. You can get to those at the Awesemo homepage, and you can also directly get to the betting articles at Awesemo Odds. All right, last thing to remind you guys of, since so many more people are watching, the promo code that you want to pay attention to if you're not yet a member, you can get 1 week of Platinum Premium access by using the promo code Augusta. In honor of the Masters, we are doing half off the 1 week Platinum package. You got to pick that package and use Augusta. It's the only one that's going to work on. And if you're going to do Fantasy Cruncher, you got to add that on afterwards. All right. Running back, wide receivers, we kind of hit on all of them. Tight ends, this is what, third time we've had Cook on a Showdown slate. I kind of say it every time. Where's the volume? It's so frustrating. He doesn't really get it. He's trusted, I would think, in the red zone, but we know that Brees does not play favorites. He'll hammer between the 20s. He'll hammer Thomas and Kamara, but in the red zone, anybody's live for a touchdown, which can make it a little bit frustrating. But it also makes it so we, as you mentioned, don't really have to correlate with his receivers. Everybody that is a captain on the receivers or tight ends, I have only influenced both Brady and Brees to be a 20% boost. I did not lock them in. Conversely, I'm going to run about half my lineups with Brees with 1 pass catcher and then the other half with 2 pass catchers, where he is the captain. I've included Kamara in that as well. Those are the rules I've got going on. Tight ends, kind of a meh, but we need some savings. Cook can get it there, but we're hoping, fingers crossed, for a touchdown. Compare Cook to Latavius Murray in that regards.
Yeah, I think the price is really why you would go towards Latavius Murray, because I think their odds of scoring touchdowns are probably quite similar, and all things considered. And I do think the recent sort of spikes we've seen, 2 of his 3 highest volume games for Cook, 7 targets last week and I believe 5 the week before that. Those come in the context of not having Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. So I think he may end up being a bit overrated, because I kind of fall on the side that you do, whereas where's the volume going to come given the context of his offense? And he wasn't even getting a ton of looks when Michael Thomas was out. So the return of Michael Thomas makes me think not too interested. Latavius Murray, maybe the knock on him would be that you would expect to see more of Latavius Murray, one, whenever they don't have Michael Thomas, so they're not giving, Alvin Kamara 40 touches a game, and 2, when they're favorites. Neither of those is the case. We obviously have Michael Thomas, and they're not favorites. So maybe that's why you wouldn't go towards Latavius Murray. But they also have a reasonable implied team total. This game does have a fairly high total, all things considered. So I think just the overall scoring environment of this game puts Murray in consideration. Any love for Traquan Smith? I think he's maybe the better pivot out of, is he that much less live to score a touchdown than Jared Cook? Maybe you could probably argue Emmanuel Sanders. Traquan Smith wasn't doing a lot when they had Michael Thomas out. It's going to be difficult for him to do much with Thomas in. But I do think he would be the tournament pivot of these pass catchers. Probably not looking to go too much deeper than these guys now that they have a healthy core of pass catchers.
Yes, so that just sums it up there. Everybody gets a little nibble, and who knows who gets the actual full touchdown. It's very difficult to tell. When we get to the defense there, differentiation play at best. Brady has been sacked, 8 or 9 times. That's the second lowest in the league. I'm going off memory because I just closed my notes page. Tampa Bay has, I think, 8 turnovers or 9 turnovers on the year. I think that's the second lowest. Brady has 4 interceptions. 2 were returned for pick sixes. Or maybe he's up to 5 now. I can't remember what happened on that against the Giants, if he had an interception or not in that game. But point being, not a lot to get here from them. But there is Tom Terrific. What do we want to do with Brady? Play him.
Yeah, I think Brady. I think Brady is the quarterback you would probably be most inclined to just completely lock button. I mean, not only the way he's been playing, but he's been playing incredibly well. His efficiency numbers are among the best in the league. He's been throwing a lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards as well. He's been playing well despite the fact that he has been dealing with an in and out of the lineup. Chris Godwin lost his maybe starting pass catching tight end, OJ Howard, early in the year. We weren't seeing a lot of Gronk. obviously they didn't have Antonio Brown, and they were even losing guys like Justin Watson, who I believe is inactive tonight. That doesn't really matter, and Scotty Miller. So they were basically mixing in anyone but Mike Evans throughout the season. Now he has not only a healthy pass catching core, but frankly, if Antonio Brown is a fraction of his former self, he probably has one of the best pass catching cores, like literally in the history of the NFL, given the context of how good like Antonio Brown is, like off-field stuff aside, is probably one of the best receivers of like since 2000. He probably has one of the best pass catching cores in the league. So I agree. I think he is, if you're playing in small field tournaments, probably it's tough. Number one, number two for captain, and it's not particularly close. I think on FanDuel, if you're looking at FanDuel, he probably is the number one captain because Alvin Kamara makes so much of his living as a pass catcher. That is still valuable on FanDuel, just not nearly to the extent that it is on DraftKings. So kind of on FanDuel, Tom Brady moves to the clear number one MVP for me. I think I'm probably going to play him in almost every one of my lineups, and Drew Brees is the guy I'm not taking a huge stand on, but I will probably come in less than the field on Brees relative to me being above the field on Brady. Yeah, he's going to play. I don't see any reason for him not play particularly well. I even think the Saints defense that we've seen in years past has kind of come down to earth now.
All right. We're going to keep hustling along here because we want to get time for some questions for you. We're going to talk a little Awesemo Odds Shopper. We're going to talk a little No House Advantage. But most importantly, I have just dropped 10 $1 head-to-heads in the DK lobby for Showdown. Username EMac. Enjoy. Don't take them all. All right. What else do we want to pass along? So let's do this. Running backs. So here's my notes. Not a lot of clarity with the Bucs backfield as we saw in Monday Night Football. It's a timeshare, but it's not a workload share, or so it seems. Leonard Fournette, 73% of the snaps. Ronald Jones Jr., 24%. However, Jones had 7 for 23 on the ground, caught all 4 targets through the air. Fournette had 18 touches, missed 4 of his targets. So that makes 11 of 17 plays for Jones. He saw the ball. Be it he had to catch it all, but he got a target or a carry. That's 65%. Fournette, 22 of his 51. Okay, that makes a little more sense that it's not as much. It's because when he's out on the field, it's going to the receivers and other people because he's on the field more, right? So that's not that much of a surprise. And it's still a 2-to-1 workload. But what it's kind of showing is that when Jones is out there, they're looking to get him the ball. I think it's just because they're giving Fournette a break from that standpoint. The pricing is very, very weird, depending on the site that you're playing. DraftKings has Fournette $200 more than Jones. You're going to want to play Fournette 9 times out of 10. On the other side, FanDuel is very easy. They've got Fournette $3,000 less than Ronald Jones because drunk interns do the pricing at FanDuel. How do you want to parse this out? Because we still know there could be a hot hand type situation. If we're saying, well, it's going to rain a little bit more than we thought, and maybe the wind's a little bit more than we thought, that we might get more of the rushing game. These guys are kind of interchangeable. They both are okay at catching the pass. They're both okay at running in various things. Yeah, we like Fournette a little bit better, but remember how many years we bitched about how bad he was for Jacksonville. It's not like magically he's better now that he's with Tom Brady. So how do you feel about those running guys?
Yeah, I mean the FanDuel pricing. I mean, come on. I know FanDuel maybe has bigger priorities, bigger fish to fry, but better, maybe more efficient pricing next time would be nice. There's no way you're not playing Fournette on FanDuel relative to Ronald Jones. I think that pricing is just bad. On DraftKings, it is more of a conversation, but I still think the pass catching volume has been pretty clearly since Leonard Fournette returned, excluding that emergency only game, has pretty clearly been in favor of him. He has out targeted Ronald Jones 13-9, and that came on a lot of targets from Ronald Jones last week, I believe. So I think he's clearly the pass catching back. Even Bruce Arians has come out and stated that he is what they call their nickel back. It's just, their satellite back, their JD McKissick or whatever, but he also plays a larger role as a runner as well. He's not just a pass catching back. And since returning as well, he's now, because he had more carries in the last game, out carried Ronald Jones. So I think Ronald Jones will just continue to see his workload dwindle and dwindle as long as Leonard Fournette doesn't make any mistakes. And as long as Ronald Jones doesn't break off a long run on his, first or second carry. Could happen, could be a hot hand scenario, but I think more of what we see is not a dominant performance by Leonard Fournette, but he should continue to separate himself over Ronald Jones, because that's what we've seen over the past 2 weeks, and he's coming off of injury, and he's didn't even get an offseason with the team, and they're still playing him over Ronald Jones. So given their actions, I don't think we're going to see a ton of Ronald Jones. He could certainly score a touchdown, but I think at his price, like even if he doesn't do a lot and he scores a touchdown, it doesn't guarantee that he's in the optimal lineup. So I think Leonard Fournette is clearly the running back I'm going with here. And I don't really have much interest in Ronald Jones at all, simply because the team is telling us by the way they're allocating touches that they're not going to use him a ton. And it's been getting worse in recent weeks. So not a ton of interest in Ronald Jones. I think it's okay to play him in large tournaments for all the reasons I said. He won't be very popular, but I still think his popularity probably eclipses the actual value he holds, which is not much.
All right. Tight ends, pretty straightforward. It's Gronk, and more Gronk. Surprised me. I didn't think he'd play this much. He has gotten into football shape. It turns out the year off was probably good for him. They're not asking him to be the road grade blocker that he sort of turned into be at in New England. They've changed their priorities a little bit. Plus, they have a better overall offensive line. He's played 80% of the snaps on the season. Cameron Brate was going to be on about 15 to 20%. We don't know what's going to happen with Antonio Brown in. Are they going to do more 3 wide receiver sets? They don't play very much 2 tight end sets here for Tampa Bay. But Brate has seen 4 targets over the last 3 weeks. Yikes. We're hoping to make America Brate again, but we'll see. Gronk has at least 1 red zone opportunity in each of the last 6 games, 9 total in that time frame. I do not feel that Gronk is a volume guy, but I feel he's a very important red zone target, and he's in play for 1 or 2 20-yard tight end drags across the middle in any game. That makes him valuable. Will he get 100 yards? I doubt it. But 65 and a touchdown feels pretty good. As a potential upside. That's not a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not locking that in.
No, I agree. I think he's probably very not live to get the 100-yard bonus, but on a showdown slate, you don't need every guy to get a 100-yard bonus. He's going to be on the field, like you said, for 80+% of the snaps. And early it was like the first 2 games, I believe. He was getting used in that like blocking style role. He was on the field, but not getting targeted. OJ Howard goes down with the ACL injury, and they have a choice to make. And they choose, obviously, like maybe at this point, Gronk would be best deployed because of his size and still probably some athleticism as a blocker. It's either him or Cameron Brate, though, and he is still undoubtedly the better pass catcher out of the 2, I would imagine. So Rob Gronkowski kind of giving up that blocking role to take on more of the full-time pass catching role. He could see, upwards of 7-8 targets if they have to pass a lot, although they are favored. I think, like you said, red zone weapon, and unlike Jared Cook, he's seen more volume in recent weeks. He's always on the field. So Gronkowski, I think, is fine. Maybe his price is a little much, I think, in the same range. I'd probably target a Leonard Fournette over him. But if you're looking for a Tom Brady passing stack, I think the low end of the, Godwin, Evans, Antonio Brown, the lowest of them, Rob Gronkowski, is certainly a fine play. Probably not running much of him at captain because I really struggle to see, like we said, I don't see him getting enough volume or breaking enough long catches to really go and be the optimal captain play when we have choices like Kamara, Thomas, Brady, even Godwin. So for that reason, I can't really imagine playing a captain. I certainly won't be doing it. He will be a mainstay of my flex. I don't think he's the player I'm most overweight from the field on, but I probably will be overweight because he's going to be on the field every single play, or at least 80% of the offensive plays in a high-scoring game. His team has a high total. He's a good red zone weapon. Kind of checks all the boxes for this mid-price flyer. So I like Gronk. Man, I don't know what we're going to see from Antonio Brown. I have no clue. What we saw from him in week 2 of last year, which is the only week he played, and it's an incredibly small sample, so take it with many grains of salt, is he ran, I think, less than 20 routes and was targeted 8 times. He only caught 4 of them. He went 54 and a touchdown, if I have all those numbers right. But basically what happened is that they didn't have, they had, a week of practice or whatever with Antonio Brown. And they said, we've got probably 20 plays designed for you or whatever. You're only going to take the field for the plays you learned in the playbook. And he was targeted as probably the primary read on most of those, at least, almost close to half or maybe even half. So I think we could see something similar where he is not an every down player, but the downs he is on are the downs that are designed to get him the ball. Could see a lot from him. And man, Tom Brady just loves this guy. So I think he's an interesting play. He probably still projects to be the number 3 receiver. And because he doesn't project to see a ton of snaps, I think his price right now, that price point is a little much for me to play a ton of him. I still think he's live for a touchdown. I think he could go for 100 yards, but I think it's more like what we saw in that week 2 game with the Patriots, where he doesn't play a lot. He gets the ball a decent amount, but do I expect him to outscore Chris Godwin? Probably not. Do I expect him to outscore Mike Evans? I don't know. Mike Evans does not see the ball a lot. He's averaging like less than 2 receptions and like less than 20 yards in the games that Chris Godwin has played this year. Obviously a small sample, but we did see that the two were highly, highly negatively correlated last year. Never went off in the same game, and they both had incredible seasons. So I think that negative correlation is kind of coming back up. Now, Chris Godwin, maybe not at full health, but back on the field. My expectations are so tempered for Mike Evans. He's probably the player I am least excited to play this late. I don't think I'm going to have much of any of him because I'm playing a lot of single entry stuff. So, if I was building 150, I'm sure I'd have some of him. Probably not going to have much given that negative correlation we've seen with Godwin. And it's not like he has a great chance of going off when Godwin's been on the field. He's basically made a living on touchdowns. He's looked like Marvin Jones essentially when Kenny Galladay is on the field, when Chris Godwin is on the field. So I think Mike Evans is probably the easiest fade of the Tampa receivers.
Absolutely agree. Sorry, did I hear the magic words, Marshawn Lattimore? I was busy looking at something.
I would never cite a quarterback matchup.
Okay. All right. No House Advantage, sponsor of the show. Let's talk about their format for a little bit. Props. Prop wagers. But we're not going against the house. Hence the name, No House Advantage. We are playing against each other's peer-to-peer, just like it is on DraftKings, FanDuel. Same type of contests, head-to-heads, 50-50s, GPPs, etc. They give out, or they'll do a setup, depending on their slate, somewhere between 50 and 70 questions, and then you choose 5 of them, pick the over or under on the line they set, and that is a static line, by the way. It does not change for weather or injury. There's a little bit of game theory there, but we have it all set up here on our projections page. So tonight we have Alvin Kamara. Their line is half a rushing touchdown. We say that you should take the under on that. We are projecting him for 25% of a touchdown. Obviously, touchdowns are binary, but what that is saying, meaning you either get it or you don't, but what that is saying is there's about a 40% expected value within that play, which is the difference in probability between what we think is a 25% chance of a touchdown and what they think is almost a 50% chance of a touchdown. Ronald Jones, here's the other two we're going to talk about. Apparently we're stuck on running backs. Ronald Jones rushing yards, 48.5. Awesemo has it projected for 30.
Yeah, we would slam that under. I didn't even need to know Awesemo's projections, but I love hearing that because, that is 48.5. That's like week 5 Ronald Jones, not week 8, week 9 Ronald Jones.
Oops. Who am I? I'm going to have to ban somebody. Just getting timeout, people. I'm going to guess at who it is. So there you go. Talk to support afterward. Okay. You've got one more. Leonard Fournette, 34.5 rushing yards. We are projecting 48. I think we'd want to take the over.
Fournette. Sorry, I was looking at chat.
Fournette, 34. Oh, it's just somebody being a butthead. So.
At least they're not saying I won't go. You can't make me go. You could drag me by my cold dead hands before I'll go off this show. No, the Fournette over, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, do they not know what's going on with the split between, like, Ronald Jones is a relic of the past. He fumbled again, dude. Were we on for the last
yes.
Were you and I on? I literally at the beginning of the show I was like, obviously fumbles are random, but if there's any player that is more effective, there's no player more affected by fumbles than Ronald Jones. And it took him all of like a drive to fumble the ball, and he hardly, he didn't come back into like the third quarter or something. Like, Bruce Arians hates this guy, and I'm starting to see that maybe he has a reason to. So I literally think we are seeing like Ronald Jones as more of like Latavius Murray, not even like a 1B, but more of like a 2+ to Leonard Fournette's 1A or whatever.
All right. Let's see. I put my head-to-heads in there, so we're good on that. Oh, the No House Advantage promo code Awesemo. You make your first deposit, they will match you up to $20 in site currency, and then that will come out of your account first as you utilize their prize. They have a mobile app and a very elegantly slick website that is nohouseadvantage.com. Let's see here. We kind of hit on tight ends. Defense. I'm okay playing the Tampa Bay defense, not doing cartwheels for them. More. Let's get to the numbers. We kind of hit on it before. So I said they lead the league in sacks, interceptions, overall DVOA, and passing DVOA. They're second in rushing DVOA and second in sacks. However, New Orleans has only allowed 9 sacks and just 5 turnovers. Hard to get excited. We were excited about them when they were very expensive against the Giants. Didn't really quite get us there, but That was an interesting game. Let's see here. How about we talk rankings? So, Kamara, Brady, Fournette, Godwin, and then I get to the kickers. How far down do you until you start needing value?
Yeah, I think for this slate, you're probably just looking to get like one or two studs potentially, and just hope you find the right mix of the mid-range guys. Because I mean, you have to essentially. It is so difficult to jam in like three or four of these studs, and there are not good or there aren't great like low cost value. I think someone shouted out Marquez Callaway in the chat. Certainly possible. He could actually run as the number 3 over Traquan Smith. I don't think it's likely, but Traquan Smith hasn't given this team a lot. They seem to like Marquez Callaway, but like it's those kind of guys. It's Cameron Brate. You hope you get like 2 targets and one of them is a touchdown. I think those plays in general don't have a great hit rate. Like, we've seen like Tyler Johnson had a great game, didn't make the optimal lineup. Cole Kmet a few weeks ago started off the first drive with like 6 DK points, didn't make the optimal lineup again. These 200 plays are $200 and still 1% owned for a reason. It's because they're guys who hardly take the field. So I'm probably looking to get like a mix of like Gronk's, Fournette's, probably the kickers over the defenses, because you laid it out. I think both of these teams are bottom 5 in giveaways, meaning they don't give the ball up a lot. If not, they're both bottom 10, and they are top 10 in a bad way for defenses, top 10 in sacks, or their team's sacks allowed. They don't take sacks, they don't turn the ball over, and like if you know anything about Brady and Breeze, like that should not surprise you. They're 2 of the quickest guns in the league, and they're also incredibly accurate. They get the ball out fast and they get it to the right location. That leaves very small like margin for error on your defenses. I'd rather go with the kickers and hope one of these teams struggles in the red zone. Red zone efficiency, largely fluky, like not really any stability to it. This could be the game where we see 3 field goals from Will Lutz or whatever. So I think if I'm looking for value, I'm definitely looking for the kickers. It's just going to be difficult for these defenses. If I had to pick one, I'd go with Tampa Bay. They're the favorite team. They're at home. And I don't know, Drew Brees looked dusty early in the year. I don't think he's looked like that really at all later in the year. So none of these defenses really do a ton for me. It'd be Tampa Bay if I had to pick one. Outside of the rankings, I agreed with very much. I think did you say Alvin Kamara, then Tom Brady, then Fournette, then Godwin?
And I think it's a coin flip between Brady and Kamara.
Yeah, I agree.
I cannot differentiate. I was hoping I would feel strongly about one or the other. And you say, well, I can consolidate the entire Tampa Bay offense, passing offense, with Brady and not have to worry about who the pass catchers are. Or I can go with Kamara, where I'm going to be getting the rushing and probably some dump off passes. And if I really don't think the weather's great, then that means I should really, really be interested in Kamara as well, and not worry about who's coming back.
Yeah, I agree. Someone
Thomas and stuff, but
someone in our chat, I'll throw this to you, but I have my main Fournette or Gronk. I go with Fournette, even captain or not. I think one in like low stakes and like low entry field tournaments, you want to capture some of the rushing equity. Like this is like both of these teams are probably going to run a decent amount, so you want to capture some of the rushing equity from the team, and I think the way you do that is Fournette. Gronk, I think probably with all the pass catchers they have, is his projection has to come down. You just can't, either that or the Tampa Bay offense should just be absolutely berserk. So I think his projection comes down a bit. And in terms of captain, if we get a Fournette rushing touchdown, those are touchdowns that aren't shared with, Tom Brady or whatever. So he has this ability to be a bit more unique and carry himself without carrying someone else up to the captain with him. And I guess in tournaments, that's where I break my split on Tom Brady versus Alvin Kamara. Kamara can score 2 rushing touchdowns and go over 100 yards, and he can do that without elevating Drew Brees. So I can play Kamara without Brees. Whereas I think if you're playing Michael Thomas, you don't have to play him with Brees, but if he's the optimal captain, it does make it more likely that you have to play Brees, and it also puts in a scenario where Brees doesn't end up outscoring him. Doesn't seem awfully likely, but I do like the fact that I can, capture unique touchdowns by playing the running backs there. So probably is my slight lean to Kamara, but like I agree with you. You can't go wrong with either of these guys.
All right, let's go a little deeper down the tiers here, and then we'll get to questions. I'm just uploading some of my stuff. Antonio Brown, how many snaps are you guessing?
I think this game features probably a lot of back and forth. I think it's going to be a high-scoring good game. So I'll put the line at like 28.5. I think it was like less than 20 in the game he played with the Patriots. And they don't necessarily need him. They have, two, not that they don't need him, but they have two good enough running backs, a good tight end and a okay backup tight end. two really good receivers. And Scotty Miller is not a bad number 3 receiver. He's probably like a decent number 2 receiver. So I don't think they have to use him a ton, at least in terms of taking the field a ton. Would you take, what did I say, 28.5? Would you take the over-under on that?
I'd take the under
Okay.
on it, but it's not by much. I think he's going to get at least 20. I think he's going to get at least 5 targets. I think maybe it's a better way of saying it. Like if you set the over-under at 5.5, that feels about right. If you set it at 4.5, I'd take the over.
Yeah, I think at 5.5, I'd take the under. 4.5, it's probably a good question. I want to see what's our ownership on Antonio Brown, because I think he's the most interesting question, not only of the slate, but like of the entire just DFS week, although not on the main slate. Our ownership for Antonio Brown. Let me see. At captain, where is he? We have no ownership at captain. We have hardly any ownership on him at flex too. I think if this holds, which I'm not sure if it will, as of I pulled this up right before we started the show, or maybe even during the show. Right now, looking at our top showdown and single games plays tool, which I think is a good place to start looking at how you might want to find leverage. I mean, you can use it to find ownership too. It's nice to have them both in the same spot. I have them like less than 10% owned in the flex, so I may end up having some Antonio Brown tonight.
Do you go with Gronk or Brown on DK? Gronk, Brown, or Fournette? Kind of rank those guys. You can really, sorry to now adding another caveat. You can really play 2 of the 3 in your lineups, and you're kind of going to want to if you're only making a handful. But if we're parsing this out,
yeah, I think I would lean Fournette first. Man, if this is anywhere close to right, it's Antonio Brown first relative to the field. If we're going to see less than 10% Antonio Brown, like significantly less, versus the field, I'm going to go Antonio Brown. I think he definitely projects for less fantasy points than Leonard Fournette. He still expects to be like a 3A type of receiver as opposed to even locked in number 3. We're talking about him playing, a third or less. We're taking the under on a third of the snaps or, roundabout. We're talking about 4 to 5 targets. That's not that much different than Gronk. I just think if Antonio Brown is old Antonio Brown or something like that, 4 to 5 targets for him is a lot different than, 8 to 10 carries for Leonard Fournette and a few targets. It's a lot different than Rob Gronkowski getting maybe even more targets. So versus the field, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette, Rob Gronkowski. In a vacuum, which ones would I take? I would probably take Leonard Fournette and then Antonio Brown and Gronk. Gronk and Brown are pretty close. Right now, we just have more ownership on Gronk. And if they're going to be close, I'll take Brown.
Yeah, and that definitely makes sense. So what I'm doing right now is I'm uploading my primetime lineups, and then I'm going to fortunately have all my rules set and all that other fun stuff for Showdown. Got my main lineup in, but I've had to adjust Antonio Brown because he's not coming into my lineups naturally. So you'll want to, if you're going to be building a lot of lineups, you always want to kind of look and see what is actually happening, what's going on. So I had to kind of lock him in and just ask Fantasy Cruncher to do a few things for me. I asked nicely, which is important. All right, so let's see, what rules did I set? Let's get this over here. Go to advanced options. I got 11 minutes. So I did 2 of kickers and defenses combined in a pool, including captains. My Tom Terrific lineup has all of the pass catchers. I did not put Fournette in this one, but I have boosted Cameron Brate, Antonio Brown, and Scotty Miller to all be higher when Brady is the captain. So I'm trying to get them in my lineups. The Cool Breeze rule is Drew with all of his pass catchers, including Kamara. The pass catching captains, I put everybody who was a running back, or probably a tight end or a wide receiver here, and I boosted Brady or Breeze's percentage by 20% if those guys are going to be in there. Tight end scrubs, just one of all of and some of these guys aren't even active, Tampa Bay scrubs. New Orleans scrubs, I've got Traquan Smith, Callaway, Harris, Hill, Troutman. I'm only going to play one at the most. Projections should filter them out. I'm only playing one of Brown or Miller. I do not think they can coexist. And then I'm only, if Captain Jones or Fournette do not play the other guy in flex. Those are my rules tonight.
Yep, I think all those make sense to me. I would say maybe, I'm not sure if you hit on this one. If I would captain Brady in tournaments, at least I'd probably consider making the double stack rule. I think
I have two for him and two for Breeze.
Yeah, what I've got. Completely agree. Yep.
And then I'll go in and I'll reset it so it doesn't happen. Sorry, it doesn't happen in all of them because I'll want some of. I don't think Breeze needs 2 of his guys.
Yeah, his guys especially, I think probably make more sense to potentially he could get there maybe. I think maybe the only problem you run into is that if he is the optimal captain and you're not playing two of his receivers, but he still makes the optimal captain, maybe that's probably a good like low scoring affair scenario, which I mean people are probably not going to be playing this game as if it could score low. Whereas like we saw anything could happen. Like do you know if Pittsburgh won? I think they won,
They
but
did.
they almost like Vegas is obviously incredibly efficient, but I think maybe the judgment of how efficient they are, at least how much faith we put in them, like they're efficient on them on the whole, but they could in any single game obviously be wrong. Like we saw Pittsburgh almost lost to like the worst team in the NFL. Anything can happen. Vegas is the most efficient way we have to judge things. Still exists on a wide range of outcomes. So I think Breeze captain would probably be a low scoring game. If you're playing Breeze captain, maybe like go with like a what kind of lineup would you build with Breeze captain?
I would go one of two ways: Breeze, Kamara, and Thomas, and hope I get everything, or I would go Breeze in one of them and then come back with everything Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, especially if Tampa Bay is like playing low, like high volume, but from behind, not putting up a lot of points. Their guys just get their own volume. Yes, I think maybe that's an interesting way to go with a Breeze captain type of lineup where he doesn't obviously like you run into the problem where he could elevate one of his pass catchers ahead of him. Doesn't have to be the case. So definitely an interesting way to build a lineup.
All right, I've got 7 minutes here. I'm gonna hit some crunch. It is crunch time. Ba-dum-bum. All right, there we go. What are you doing with two, four? I've got a lot more 3-3s today than I normally do. What are you looking at with regards to like 2-5s or probably 2-4s, 4-2s, etc.?
Yeah, in the largest field tournaments, I generally shy away from 3-3. I think that's the most common way to build lineups, and I believe it is also the most common winning lineup. But I do believe the rate at which it's used is not quite commensurate with how much it hits. Like I think 5-1 probably goes underrated, and so does 2-4. And the Saints do set up well for like a 2-4 because they can funnel so much of their volume specifically on receptions. They don't even need to carry the quarterback there because they can get there via receptions and just hitting 100 yards. I think they make an interesting 2-1 because both Thomas and Kamara would be like, I think you're fine captaining them whether or not they win or lose. So I think they're probably the team I would look to more for a 2-4. I don't really look to 1-5 lineups very much. I know it's hit this year. I think it hit James Robinson versus the Dolphins, but doesn't hit at a quite high rate. I'd have to look and see what percentage it's used at. I still think it's so unlikely that it's like probably something you're minus EV doing. I have to think about it a little more though. So I don't do it a lot. 2-4 and then 5-1 are probably my most common builds versus the field specifically, just because I think people overestimate like the idea that a game is just going to be back and forth and guys get in at 3-3. That being said, it still hits at the highest rate. So I believe it has in the past, at least in the past about 2 years. So I like 5-1s. I think Tampa Bay makes an interesting 5-1 because they just have so many weapons and they're all relatively affordable. Like you can, like we talked about, you can get multiple of your Fournette, Gronk, Brown tier guys in there and still play a Brady and still play a Godwin or whatever. So I think they are probably the more appealing of the 5-1 side, and I will have some 5-1 Tampa Bay on slots.
All right, I'm just looking to see here. Oh, I need to make a Cameron Brate lineup. And I've got a lot of Antonio Brown. I'm having to force that in. Not getting nearly as much Kamara as I thought. A little dicey. I do have 20. Well, I only have 3% in captain. Yikes. Better rectify that, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, he is one of the two best captains. Yeah, Antonio Brown does not project well, and I think that's rightfully so. His price is it's a bit too much for a guy who should just be the number 3 receiver. I think the reason I am so excited about seeing Antonio Brown play is simply because of his ownership, which I kind of would tend to lean on like the over on our ownership projection. But even if it's just relatively in the ballpark of our ownership projection, I think Antonio Brown, just he's Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown low owned. It seems like the upside is maybe not commensurate. Like the floor is that he goes out, gets 20 snaps, is targeted 3 times, and doesn't catch any of them. The floor is not great, and at his price, a floor game would be devastating to your lineups. But the ceiling, I think, is so ambiguous and potentially has a lot of upside that Brown just versus the field simply, not versus his price, which is not good for a number 3 receiver. I still think it is a very interesting play, simply because no one else seems to think it's an interesting play, I guess.
All right, downloading the file, gonna get it up, and then we're going to be live. Oh, I didn't get in nearly as many lineups as I normally do. Let's see. Scotty Miller is garbage. I don't think so. I think everybody is when everybody's healthy, they're gonna suppress everybody else. That's a better way of saying it. And we have. I mean, think about. I mean, this is an embarrassment of riches for Tampa Bay, and you know what? Not too shabby either for the Saints when you look at their pass catching options.
Yeah, I like Scotty Miller. I think Scotty Miller's good. I don't know. Maybe they're just saying he's a garbage play tonight. If you think Antonio Brown plays a lot, I mean, you're probably right. I don't know. We talked about it. We don't think he plays more than like it'd be maybe surprising to see him even play half the snaps. I think more like a third should be the projection. So I think Scotty Miller is like an interesting play. He's basically like arbitrage Antonio Brown. He's cheaper. I still think the plays that Antonio Brown takes the field are probably incredibly likely to be passing plays where Antonio Brown is one of the first two reads. So for that reason, like even if he split snaps with Scotty Miller, obviously he'd be projected to get more volume, and he's also Antonio Brown. Like Scotty Miller, I think has 4 or 5 games over 70 yards this season. He's been a serviceable number 2, does project for maybe half or so of the snaps. So I think Scotty Miller, an interesting play. We don't have a ton of ownership on him either. Probably not the guy I'd be looking to get in the captain. I don't know if his volume gets him there potentially.
Oh, I see. I've got a Latavius Murray captain there. That should be fun.
I think that's okay. I think he has double touchdown upside, and on a slate where I think we have so many good mid to high price plays. Like I think Godwin, Breeze, Brady, Kamara, Thomas are all like Fournette are all very solid plays. Like I like all of them. I don't know, man. I think Latavius Murray. You play a lot of like low 100-man or less, or in that ballpark. So maybe in those lineups or in those fields, you don't necessarily need to get that weird. Maybe look to be a little bit more neutral with how you play it. But in the largest tournaments, I think Latavius Murray captain would be completely fine.
All right, let's hit the like button, please. Get us up to 200 here. Reminder, we're starting it off tomorrow at, 10 a.m. We're going to have, let's see, Matt and Lofty are going to discuss the Monday Night Football game, which is New England and the Jets. Then we're going to have the lineup rewind show. Then there's going to be a golf preview look. And I think there's one other football show. And then we've got us coming back live 1 hour before kickoff for NFL Live Before Lock. Reminder, the best deal we have going on right now is the Awesemo promo code Augusta in honor of the Masters, which is next Thursday. Use the promo code Augusta when you sign up for the 1 week full all access premium package. It only works with that one, the 1 week package, and you get it for half price. Sweet deal there. You want to jump on over there to No House Advantage. When you make your first deposit, put in $20. They'll give you another 20. Easiest way to make some money. Refer a friend. Get another $5 on. All right. Who's your panic guy that you wish you had more of, or don't have enough?
A panic guy that I wish I had more of. I think it's going to be one of the Bucs. I feel like we can fairly easily predict what's going to happen on the New Orleans side. So I guess it'll continue to be Antonio Brown. Like, would it shock me if he comes out and like scores on a long touchdown or something? Like, I don't know. Antonio Brown's just so good. Like, I think people forget just how incredibly good he is. So like, I don't know. Maybe I don't have to feel that bad because I know with my ownership of him, I should be over the field. But if he goes out and if he ends up being the optimal captain, I'll feel kind of stupid for not having him like some of the larger stuff. So.
All right, officially here is the 10 a.m. tomorrow, and it's going to be Matt Gajeski and Lofty breaking down the Showdown game. That's going to turn into a podcast. Everything we do except for Live Before Locks turn into podcasts. You can get those on the Awesemo Podcast Network. If you don't want to listen to ads sometimes that pop up on YouTube, which we don't have control of, they're starting to insert them in our content now instead of just putting them at the front. But one way you can kind of skip a few of them, the little advance button, we're looking out for you. Plus, it's easier to listen when you're doing chores, the laundry, cooking, running errands, etc. Doesn't take any data. All right, Kyle, with that, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Tweets Here. I am at EMac DFS. And of course, it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers,